Let's take you to Randburg now to get some reaction from South Africans on the VAT increase. Nqobile Madlala has been speaking to people and joins us now live. Nqobile, what are people saying? Yes, far less than the 2% we were initially told was the ask. 0.5%. What are people saying?
Well, ultimately, it boils down to whether or not they will be able to afford later on. And that's what people have been discussing. And I want to bring in my guests now to speak to me about those issues. I mean, we were having that discussion about the 0.5%, and you were telling me how this is going to affect you. Can you explain to us as a South African, how does this affect you then?
So the cost of living is already high, and if we think about the fact that food prices will increase and transport prices will increase, everything that we purchase is going to increase, and we are already sitting in a space where salaries doesn't actually cover our expenses, and we're just going to be in a worse off situation.
And I think as a person that has to deal with that, what are your greatest concerns?
So quality of living, I think as middle class citizens, we're dropping down into, the lower income end. Expenses get higher, but the income doesn't match. And the expenses are getting higher at a rate that is too great for us to increase our income with. So it just, it's a scary future that doesn't look bright at all right now.
Thank you very much for speaking to us. I want to bring in some of my guests as well to speak to us. Baba, ubukhala nawe ngendlela yokuthi uyabona ukuthi ngathi izinto zizonyuka njengomuntu osebenza la, osebenza ngabantu, odinga no petrol, odinga ukuthenga njalo, ucabangani?
Ya khona ngikhale kakhulu ngoba upetrol uyadura kanti siyasafara. Nemisebenzi ayikho so isidingo sokuthi kukhuphuke ukudla upetrol asikho kahle ngoba rough umsebenzi ayikho, so sifila under pressure kahle ngoba ngabe kungcono ukubani siyasebenza. Yabona nje nawe nama 350 ngizoza ngawo. Yabona nje umsebenzi ayikho, as-afford eminye imizi ikati lisalele eziko kuze kube namhlanje, and ayikho enye plan abanayo, so izinto manje lokho ezikhuphuka kancane ide more situation iba more bad. So siyacela nje futhi ukuthi uminister aphinde asisize kanjengoba besiza izalukazi ayikhuphulele imali nalabo imali uyikhuphulile ngoba no 350 uthe awuvala next year March. So siyabonga nje kakhulu manje ke besicela futhi ukuthi aphinde asizwele ngoba nokudla kuthiwa kuyakhuphuka.
Well, just briefly, he's explaining that he's worried that this will also have an effect on him. He says that as the food goes up, this obviously affects everyone. And the great concern is that perhaps they will also have some fuel going up. I mean, we already know that the fuel levy stays the same, but he is saying that this will have sort of an effect that will be ongoing, and this might find that initially at the end, they end up having to pay more. I want to bring in also more of my guests to react to this. So you've heard already the 0.5 VAT that has been increased by the minister. What's your view?
Sanbonan, guys. I think for me, one, it's very bad, obviously, because of the lower class of our country. And I'm not saying that in a derogatory manner or whatever the case is, but if you look at the majority of people in the streets here, they're just doing whatever it takes to survive on a day-to-day basis. But again, there's a positive side to it, right? It's only going to be in effect too much. My biggest fear, though, is the FMCG industry. Prices are going to increase drastically, right? And the average person in the streets, it's going to be very, very difficult for them to actually afford. So I think as a proposal, instead of complaining about problems that the government has or has implemented, here's a solution rather. How about they create a dynamic system where the regulatory houses are also involved? For example, when certain rates do decrease, let's do the same for all of the petrol prices, the transport, the food as well. Everything needs to be dynamic. That way, at least it gives people some leeway here and there. Things get cheaper over time and others do get expensive. There's a certain balance. But our current issue is that when things do increase, they stay at that price. Nothing ever goes down. And for the average person, it's very difficult.
And I want to ask you, because he's also increased the pension for abogogo as well as the kids. What's your view on that, especially with the fact that there's that 0.5% hike?
For me, I think it's a slap in the face. Because if you look at the average interest rate increase, right, and the VAT rate increase and how much they're actually increasing for them, it doesn't make sense. So even if they increase it by 50 Rand, that 50 Rand is worthless at the end of the day, right? I feel like they should take a different approach. So for kids, right, They need to be priority, Nabokok. Let's have them at least get the minimum wage line base, 3.5. That would make things much better, in my opinion.
Thank you very much for speaking to us. Well, Vuyo, as you can hear from those guests, that they're saying that they're worried about the increase, because what happens then when the VAT increase comes in, and even though that the people are getting an increase in grants, it might not be enough.